Hello.
Hello.
I don't know where we're meant to be looking at.
We're looking at the right thing, I think. Oh, no, we're not.
No, we
Yeah,
are.
we are.
Sorry. This is not our first Cat and Katie show. If this is the first one you're watching. We've just got about 3 or 4 things in front of us and we didn't know where to be looking.
We've got multiple screens, many screens. Anyway, welcome to the Cat and Katie show. Today we are going to be going through Cricos, which we didn't actually realize would be as big as it is, but there's quite a lot of considerations when we talk about Cricos. So if you've recently taken on Cricos, or you've been, you're a brand new client and you've been doing Cricos for years and years and years, this is basically a webinar to help you get set up in a way.
There'll be many other webinars that you can watch to help you with this. So for example, we're going to be showing you how to send out your templates, how to attach your payment plans and your finance models to a class. And so all of those are separate sessions that we've done as well. So if we are going over things a bit too fast, just remember that we've got maybe a 40-minute session on payment plans, another hour on finance models, an hour and a half on templates. So if you need further information on those, feel free to watch those webinars. This is just more, okay, how do we bring that all together so our processes for Cricos are spot on?
Absolutely. So without further ado, I think we'll probably both contribute today, but Kat will be monitoring the chat. Yep. So if you do have any questions, add them, and we'll get started now.
Perfect. Alrighty. Katie will just share her screen shortly.
Okay, let's get into this. So what I'm going to do very quickly is jump into the Cat and Katie show account, which I should have already done. Here I am. All right, so with Cricos. Now, Cricos is one of these things. It isn't standard with aXcelerate. So if you do have Cricos students, or if you are you're going through the process to then become registered as a Cricos provider, it is an additional 10% of your license fees per year if you do want to take on the feature. If you are on our turbo plan, it's all included obviously because you get every single feature, but it is 10%. So I thought I'd just mention that as well. So the first thing, once we ensure that we've actually switched on the Cricos feature, and that's something that we do here at aXcelerate for you, there's a couple of other things that we want to make sure that we've got as well. So this is kind of just general setup, and then we'll get into some of the nitty gritty. So the first thing, this is another thing that we can help you do, is whenever we use this impersonate feature, which I'm actually not using at the moment, I'm using multi-RTO, but let me go into here and just impersonate into the same account that I was just looking at, and Katie, and just jump in. I'll just jump in as Kat here. When we impersonate you, and we do this when we train you, when we support you, if we're trying to, do some troubleshooting of a problem, and it basically allows us to enter into the account as yourself. So the only way to do the next step is if we impersonate you and we actually do this for you, and that is to launch our little wizard that we have for our certificates and our templates. So you may have a full library of certificates and templates at this point, which is fine. Basically though, with Cricos, we've also created within our little account setup wizard, if I click begin, a whole lot of Cricos related templates. So another thing I'm going to do very quickly is just hit quit on my Skype, otherwise that's going to really annoy me. So you can see here, as well as something that you may have seen before, like the booking confirmation or the confirmation of enrollment, or even some of these training plans or the tax invoice receipt, we have a hefty amount of Cricos related templates at your disposal to use and customize with basically pre-built in information so that, it makes it really nice and easy to quickly automate some of these emails, some of the warning letters that you might need to send out to your Cricos students. So the first thing that we can do for you within our little wizard is go through and basically go and add as many of these as there is in here. So I won't go through and click every single one, but as you can see, there is a nice little grouping or library of Cricos related templates. So I'm going to hit submit. It's basically letting me know at this point, and this is something that you would never see because it's something that we would do, but it's telling me I'm adding these templates, and then I can basically just exit the wizard. All right, so now what we'll notice is under courses and under templates, I have, as well as all the communication templates in here, I actually have all these Cricos related templates. So you can see here, I've quite a lot, and I've actually just gone ahead and duplicated some of them by demonstrating that. So that's kind of one of the other little things that we do on our side to get you prepared in terms of setup of Cricos. So when we switch on Cricos for you, there's a couple of things that change within the system that you'll notice.
Sorry, I'll just add something to that as well while she's on this page. She being Katie, sorry. It's Kat. Just before, sorry. Just before she moves away from this impersonate feature is because there's one more thing that we do, and that is in your system settings. Katie will come back and speak about settings later on, but I just wanted to do this just before she moves on. Is in your web and other integration, sorry, in RTO and vet settings of your system settings, there is this Cricos area here, and this is where it allows you to populate all your Cricos information. But we have one more area here, which is our Cricos setup wizard. Again, this is only what aXcelerate staff members can see when they are creating the account for you, and it allows us to go and launch this wizard and go through and start to create particular fields. So it allows us to create custom fields in your account that a lot of our Cricos providers will use. I can then, there's no provider number, that's okay, I'll just go next. And then it's creating all these portfolio types for me so that my agents or my administrators can upload visas and passports. I'll go submit. It's creating those portfolio types for me. And the next thing it's going to do is add in some more templates for me, which has already been done, but I'll just skip that one. It's already been done. And it's already creating some save reports for me. So these will go into your reports and save reports queue, or save reports area, sorry, so that I don't have to create these reports from scratch because they're generally used by our Cricos clients. And then I'll go submit. So now once that's done, if I go back to system settings, in the RTO and vet settings area, here I've now got Cricos. So a whole new checklist has been created for me called Cricos so that I can, Katie's about to jump into this, is that in there, in your contact page, you'll be able to see a Cricos checklist on their page. So it's about to jump into a contact page to see the differences once we turn on Cricos.
Absolutely.
Sorry,
and thank you, Kat. No, I'm glad you did jump in because I totally forgot about this very special little wizard that we also have access to, which saves you a lot of time. So as Kat was, so where was I? I was going through some of the differences when we actually do switch this on. So one of the differences is that you now have a little Cricos settings box within your RTO vet settings. So one of the first things that we would actually ask our RTOs to do when they're ready to get all this set up is to go and pop their Cricos provider code in here. So I could say that that is our Cricos provider code, for example. Something else that Kat just touched on was the portfolio checklist, portfolio types, so on and so forth. I will go through that in just a second, as well as though Cricos settings being added to the RTO vet settings, which I'll just click save on now. We also see a couple of other changes when it comes to Cricos. So one of those being the types of fields that we have within aXcelerate. So obviously within this form, which I'm sure all of you have seen before, you may have custom fields. But you now have a new section under custom fields called Cricos related details. And as you can see, we've got things like country of citizenship, passport number, visa number, IELTS, and a little mapping table, which is really lovely. So you can kind of map to the different tests. And on top of that, you've also got access to be able to link an international contact to this particular contact that you're creating, and also link an agent as well. So if you haven't seen the agent management webinar that we've done, there's a really, really thorough one on how to set up agents. And we actually went through the agent portal yesterday as well, which kind of all encompasses Cricos and at the same time. So there's a couple of other little webinar hints if you want to go and watch some more things that you could possibly use as a Cricos provider. So as I said, there's a couple of other fields in here, and then the other change that you would see, there's a couple of things out there, but the other main change is within our enrollments area, the ability to actually allocate a COE number. So that's the other thing that, you know, obviously when we're at a point where we have a student who's accepted their letter of offer and they want to go ahead with their studies, it's at that point that you'll then go grab their COE, and there's a place to allocate that when we go to enroll. So we're going to go through that process, not the allocating a COE, but actually popping that into aXcelerate and just showing you where that goes. So those are some of the changes that you will very quickly notice when you do have Cricos switched on. Something else that Kat touched on, and it is very contact related, is our portfolio area. So we have done a separate Kat and Katie show on the portfolio area as well, if you've never seen it before or never heard about it. But the portfolio, in essence, is the document storage area against every contact in the system. So if we're on Kat Sobello's contact record and we go and click on portfolio, we're actually able to have a look at any items or any documents that have been uploaded against Kat Sobello as a contact. So things like your passport, your visa, your sorry, your insurance form. God, I'm going into a coughing attack right now. Any sorts of things like that that you might actually have to upload, particularly because we're dealing with international students, and it's, you know, there's a lot around making sure that we've got correct visas and we've got copies of these important documents like passports. To have them in the one central location where all their other details are can be really, really helpful and much more manageable. So within portfolio, something that we did, and this was specifically, it was changed, and the change was brought in for Cricos clients as we were kind of building the Cricos framework. Other clients can definitely benefit from using it, and they do benefit from using it as well, but is this concept of a checklist, a portfolio checklist. So for a very long time, the portfolio area was simply licenses, memberships, so on, all the way through to other. But now we have this new function called the portfolio checklist, which actually enables you to basically group together the sorts of things that you might need as a Cricos provider for that particular student. So as you can see here, this is a very good example of the Cricos checklist that we basically pulled in for you. And at this point, I'm looking at Kat, and we've got red crosses across the board. So we actually haven't uploaded any documents, at all for Kat at this stage. So if we had, we would have little green ticks against each of these. And I guess at the end of the day, what you want is you want green ticks across the board to say, yep, we've got everything we need for this particular prospective student. Now, if you haven't gone ahead and created a checklist before, which is done using this little manage portfolio checklist, that will not appear. So just keep that in mind. If you are coming in here and other is the last tab, it's simply because you don't have a checklist set up, and it could be that we haven't, launched our little wizard to ensure that we've got that portfolio and those items populating for you. So one additional little hint here, if you're looking at the one that's sort of been brought in, which is our Cricos checklist here, and you're seeing certain things that you don't really need, or even some things that might be missing in here, a very quick and easy way to manage the items that we need for a Cricos student can be found under, again, Manage Portfolio Checklist. So if we jump in here, we can see that there's 14 items that are currently allocated to that checklist. If we go to Update the Cricos checklist, we can simply at this point just delete any items that we don't actually want showing in this particular checklist. Now, if you have previously uploaded items, against students, say you've uploaded someone's visa against this checklist, it's not going to delete their visa. That visa will still live under the type, which, might be a other type of portfolio item, and they'll still be there. It just won't be brought together under this nice little checklist format. So, but yeah. So if you do need to add anything or subtract anything, you've got the ability to delete and then also add any of your other types of portfolio types, if that makes sense. So that's just something else that I thought I'd mention, just so that you can customize as much as you need to. The other addition to having Cricos switched on, it purely relates to the portfolio area, is when we go to view a contact record and we scroll down, we've actually got Cricos related details here as well. So commonly, if you don't have Cricos switched on, it would simply be your imported info, other information, or your vet field, all your vet related fields, all of your vet miss fields and so on. But now we actually have Cricos related as well. So if I drop that down, you can actually see a very similar checklist. It's exactly the same checklist to the page that I was just on. So an added little sort of bonus is that you don't even have to go into the portfolio area in order to see, within the checklist, have I got everything for this international student? You've actually got the ability to very quickly see whether you've got green ticks across the board or not. So that's something else to be aware of. Underneath all the information that you have for the student will be Cricos related details, which will, as I said, show the checklist, whatever is on it, and show you how many documents you might be missing. So again, I haven't gone really into the nitty gritty of portfolio, but it's one of these things that we have done a separate Kat and Katie show on. So if you want a little bit more info on how to create types and how to, you know, create a proper checklist, then you can definitely watch that one, and then you can apply it to your account. Something else when we talk about Cricos is your Cricos codes within qualifications as well. So another part of setup that we go through is going into the qualifications that you might be delivering, finding a qualification that you deliver as part of Cricos or to your Cricos students, which might be the Cert 4 in disability, for example. And if we click in there to the update page of this particular qualification, we are then given Cricos code as an option in here. So you won't see this unless you have Cricos switched on, but at this stage, it's in here for you to be able to actually populate the Cricos code for this qualification. So I could say here that this is something that looks like that. It might even be more similar to the qual code. I'm not sure. I haven't got one off the top of my head, but that is basically there, and that definitely needs to be done because in terms of creating your letters of offer, in terms of enrolling and so on, we need those Cricos codes against your quals. So that's another really important little tip and trick. So just to recap so far, because I've been kind of talking, Cricos is an additional feature of aXcelerate. You do have to have it switched on to be able to, you know, use all of the capabilities that we have, or all of the features that we have that come with the Cricos feature. There's a couple of settings that need to happen. Something that we will do is go through our wizard and pull in for you some lovely templates, some reports, and also some portfolio items as well, which saves you a little bit of time in terms of all of that creation. We've also gone through some of the differences when it comes to having Cricos switched on. So the differences in fields, the added things around, I guess, the portfolio checklist, things like the Cricos code here and the COE number upon enrollment and within the student's enrollment, which I haven't actually shown you yet, but we will get to that. So really that's a little bit of the setup that needs to happen within the system. Really, the next part, we kind of almost have to go through, and I need to start at the very beginning, which is how do we go about just the general student enrollment process for our Cricos students. So I'll kind of try and explain it as best I can, and then we'll go in and show you some examples. Effectively, at the moment, you might be dealing with just fee-for-service students or rather domestic students. You might deal with funded students, and you, at this point, I'm sure would be very used to going through and enrolling someone into an intake. So there's a slight change when it comes to Cricos and the way that we have sort of engineered the system to work. So basically, the way that we would want our clients using this, or effectively the way that, you know, we show clients how to use Cricos, is that if you do have a brand new student or prospective student at this point, you know, they obviously still need to accept and sign the letter of offer. There could be a situation where they're interested in not only one, but maybe 3 courses that you deliver at the moment, and they're pretty keen to start, you know, as soon as possible. So the first thing that we would do with that new student is we would go into contacts and go to add new contact. I'm going to just create a student at the moment. I'm just going to call them Sam Woods. And obviously at this point, depending on the amount of information that you've collected, you would fill, you know, all of the students' information in. So I'm going to say samwoods@gmail.com. I can keep scrolling down. I'd fill in any sort of custom fields. I'd fill in any Cricos related details. Just to mention as well, with Cricos related details and custom fields, there potentially will be a situation where, you know, you need to create additional fields, and that just comes down to you as an RTO, you as a Cricos provider. So if there are additional fields that are missed within here, just because we do have to keep this somewhat generic for Cricos providers around Australia, feel free to add them to custom fields, because a lot of the time that's almost the best place to store them. So, and if you're wondering about how to create custom fields, we've done it quite a few times within webinars and Kat and Katie shows rather. So I'm going to keep going down. I won't bore you with filling all the details out, but I will go down and actually allocate an agent to this particular student. So maybe they have come through an international agent, and it might be Katie agent who has referred them to us as a student. So what I'm going to do now is keep scrolling down and hit submit. So I've just created a new student. So basically, in order to issue our letter of offer to the student, for them to then come back and say, yep, great, we're good to go. Let's fully enroll the student into whatever courses they actually want to do. We need to tentatively enroll them into those courses. Now, it'll kind of probably make more sense as I go ahead and actually do what I'm saying and explain as I go. So we've got a new prospective student, as I said. They've come through, and at this point we may have collected a couple of portfolio items or documents and have quite a few bits of information on the student or prospective student at this stage as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and say I want to enroll, or not at this stage enroll, but tentatively enroll my student into a couple of business courses. So at this stage, they want to do the Cert 1 in business. Or actually not the Cert 1 in business.
No, sorry.
Cert 1 in business, yeah?
Cert 1 in business, November intake.
November intake. Okay.
We've got some pre-prepared classes here, so that's what we're talking about. So this November intake has a timetable against it. It has the finance models and the payment plan so that Katie doesn't have to fuss around with creating all of these in the background. So that's what I'm quietly doing behind the scenes.
No, that's okay. And almost half the challenge is I'm trying to explain this in the best way possible in terms of being inclusive of everything, which is almost a prerequisite of Cricos. So obviously we went through the settings at this stage where we're in an enrollment process for Sam Woods. But within your intakes, Kat's just mentioned some really great things, and some of those, need to be set up prior to even enrolling the student, which is probably where I should have started. When you have a Cricos class or Cricos students and you're needing to enroll them into an intake or a class, there is a couple of things that we need. So maybe I'll just park the enrollment and we will definitely come back to Sam Woods. I'll even leave that there and just move into another tab. Within our intakes area, and I'm hoping that everyone who's sitting in on this webinar already knows how to create a new class or a new intake. But if you don't, we definitely have a intake or class management webinar as well if you want to go and watch that. We do need to have a timetabled class or intake. So, and this is just purely down to whether you want to mark attendance, but given that we need to mark attendance and make sure that the student is keeping in line with keeping in class or actually coming to class, we need that timetabling in order to be able to mark attendance. So if I jump in and just have a look at the class that Kat was just referring to, November intake, and just click on the update of this class and scroll down here, we'll see here that it's very clear that there is a class that's been timetabled here. So an indication is obviously these little green spanners here and our dates here as well. And if you're not familiar with how to timetable an intake, we have a separate webinar for that as well. So please feel free to jot this down and go and have a look at our timetabling webinar as well. So we have to have timetabling in order to mark attendance for our students. So that's one of the things that we need. Something else that we need, particularly for Cricos students, is, well, it just comes up quite a lot, is payment plans as well. And also being able to very easily allocate a price to a particular course, because it could be that the fees for a diploma in business may be higher for your international students than, say, students that are funded, or students that are on vet fee or vet student loans rather, or students that may be just purely domestic fee-for-service students. So a way to do that is by using our finance models. So I know I'm jumping around a little bit here, but it'll all come together when I go back to Sam Woods and actually show you how to enroll. So if I jump into finance models, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just create one from scratch and just show you how this looks. So we have done another webinar on finance models as well. But what I might do is just very quickly show you what this looks like as well from here. So what I could say here is that the name of this finance model, and this finance model relates directly to the Cert 1 in business, and it could be that it's Cricos. I'm literally just naming this as I'd like to see it when I enroll my student. Cricos, full-time, or not even full-time, of course they're going to be full-time, but it could be Cricos 2018. And wherever, and it could be Cricos 2018 and even business, biz. And what we're going to say for, and I'm just going to choose a state, we're based in Queensland, so I'm going to put that there. What I'm going to say for Cricos in this sort of sense in terms of this finance model is that the tuition fee for a Cert 1 in business for this Cricos, any sort of Cricos student, is $4,500, and that is for the full qualification. So basically what I've gone and done is basically allocated a cost which may be different to just the normal price for a full qual for a domestic student, for example, or a funded student. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit submit, and I'm also going to show you then another one that we have in here. I think Kat has actually created one called New Student Enrollment. This one here, Kat?
Yep.
So if I jump in there. So basically what Kat has done here is she's got a situation where she's saying the student is going to pay $500 and then the employer is going to pay $1,500 as well.
Yeah, this is just an example of, and it's
You just
one I was
grab
already
one.
there,
Yeah.
but it's mostly to look at the additional items, because if you are charging additional fees such as your overseas healthcare card or an administration fee that's on top of the flat rate or the tuition fee, they have to come in here so that they display on our letter of offer. From my understanding, the letter of offer will display the qualification cost, the payment plan for the qualification cost, and then additional items. And this is the only way they can get those additional items on there. So this example that we've got here, the Queensland one, I've already got an enrollment so that we can show you what that letter of offer looks like. So we towards the end of the session, we'll show you, this is what we prepared earlier to see how all of this integrates with each other.
Absolutely. Okay. So in terms of our classes and our intakes, just reiterating, we need a class that's timetabled. We need to have finance models or at least a price for that particular course that we're enrolling the student into in terms of the intake we're enrolling them into. And that can be done through finance models. And Kat has just mentioned something else, which we will get to as well, which is the letter of offer. And something else that I guess encompasses that or includes that as well is payment plans for students. So if we go into payment plans, I'm not going to demonstrate how to create a full-on payment plan because we do have a very thorough webinar on payment plans in here as well. But if you've got students who are needing to pay via a payment plan and you want to be able to allocate, a student to be able to pay per quarter or every 3 months or once a month or in 2 split amounts or however your payment plans work for your Cricos students, it is advised that, you come in here and you create a payment plan. The reason being is that within our Cricos template, our letter of offer template, there is a really lovely little place for it to pull those payment plan details and actually show the student on that letter of offer when they're going to be expected to pay and how much they're going to be expected to pay as well in total for the courses that they're choosing to do or they're interested in doing. So again, just to reiterate, we need timetabling, we need a finance model or several finance models, we need payment plans set up as well. And then the last thing that we need to just make sure we've done before we can go through with my enrollment of Sam Woods is double check that you've definitely got a letter of offer that you're happy with. So if we go into courses and go into templates, we talked about templates a little earlier, and we do have some of these Cricos related templates such as attendance warning and international agent agreement and student progress report and letter of release and that sort of thing. There's quite a few in here. But on top of that, we can actually paste into your account a letter of offer, and this says multi-role on the end, but a letter of offer. Whether it's for multiple qualifications or whether you're just offering one qualification to the student. So these would both be popped into your account as well, so that you're able to just run with it and customize it as much as you need to. But if I show you an example of what this one looks like in here, so we can see here at this point we don't have any sort of header, but if you'd like to add your logo and basically customize the top of this particular page at all, you absolutely can. Moving down a little bit further, we have, you know, a couple of pretty, you know, straightforward details. If you want to change any of these details though, you absolutely can, and you can move things around as you need to. These are just fields pulling from down below, and if you've never seen this area before, I would definitely suggest going and watching our template webinar, because we go through how templates are created. This, on the other hand, is one of these templates where it has actually had development done in the back end of the template because it is on the more complicated side. And it's purely because for this particular template, it's actually going to, depending on the amount of qualifications that you're offering to the student, loop over and create a table you know, of one or however many, it could be 5 qualifications. So it is on the more complicated side, and that's where we've actually had to create this.
Yeah, and we'll put this in your account for you. So this one here, you can see that there's red indicating where you need to populate information in, just like down the bottom, all this example text that you can put your terms and conditions in, which is simply a copy and paste from your existing documents, making sure that you do use our features so you don't copy HTML. Anyway, so as Katie was saying, all of these tables here, this one here is going to repeat for as many qualifications there are. So you would see how many qualifications they've been enrolled into with each of the costs. Any payments here, I guess this is the cost here, then any payment plans assigned to each one, and then all the items. So each of these will repeat over and over again. And we do have an example that we'll show you at the end of how that works against an enrollment.
Absolutely. So that's kind of the only other thing, is just to really customize this as much as you want in terms of the wording, where it's red, you know, putting a nice logo up the top and so on. But otherwise, you're pretty much ready to go. So again, I know I started sort of jumping into, you know, enrolling Sam, but I'll now sort of put it all together. So we've talked about very quickly the setup. We've talked about the portfolio area, and I guess some of the changes to the fields against the contact themselves. We've talked about Cricos codes. We've talked about having an intake that has timetabling, having finance models, payment plans set up if that's something that you want to use with your students, editing this particular template if you need to, or if you'd like to, which is advisable, because otherwise you'll end up with just RTO name on your template, on your letter of offer, which, you know, we probably would say that is not the best thing to have on your template. So moving forward, let me just come back to Sam Woods, and we'll start from the contact. So given that we have all of those other things in place, and we're ready at this point to go and offer Sam say 2 or even 1, it doesn't really matter at this stage for this example, but a couple of different qualifications for Sam to then come back and accept, for us to then fully, you know, complete the enrollment. All right. So one thing that is slightly different in aXcelerate, which is where I was kind of getting to before I took a serious turn and started explaining all these other functions in aXcelerate, is that we do basically have to, for all this information to pull onto a letter of offer, such as what are the 2 quals that we're actually offering Sam, and what are the costs involved, and what are the payment plans, and so on, we do need some sort of enrollment into those qualifications, those 2 qualifications, for example. Now, what we want to do though, because we don't want to actually fully enroll at this stage, is that we want to tentatively enroll Sam. So whenever you're doing any sort of Cricos enrolling at this point, and you're yet to issue a letter of offer, and obviously you can't issue the letter of offer unless you've got some tentative enrollments, the enrollment has to be tentative. So basically we've got Sam Woods, we've got a tentative enrollment. I'm going to choose that intake that Kat was just talking about a little bit earlier, and November, and I'm going to hit enroll student. All right. As soon as you get to this page, you'll notice that Sam Woods has been tentatively enrolled, but Sam Woods doesn't show in this list of students. So just keep that in mind. If you've enrolled a student and you're going crazy because you can't see where they are, they will most likely, or they will definitely be hiding in the tentative filter. So let's just have a look at that status. All right. So Sam is now sitting in here as a tentative student. Now, there's one other thing that we have to do before we can actually go through and issue the letter of offer, and that's to make sure that we've actually got the fees sorted out for this particular student. So you'll notice, because it's a tentative booking, we've got certain things like the enrollment date, and it has taken on the commencement and the expected completion date of the particular intake. So at this point, I'd advise changing any of those dates if you need to. So if your commencement date, really is not going to be on the 13th of the 11th, and it might be, some other date, obviously we can go through at this point and change those dates. These dates do play a big part in the letter of offer. That's probably something else to mention if you're needing to change the dates. It's also important. You may even have just top level dates of your class. I'm trying to rack my brain and trying to think whether it pulls the class dates or the student dates, but we'll soon find out. All right. I don't have any enrollments in any units yet. I'm not a fully enrolled person. I'm simply tentative at this point. I don't need to fill out these details at this stage because we don't even know whether the student's going to accept our letter of offer. If we keep scrolling down to the finance area, this is where you'll see I don't have any sort of fees allocated for this particular student because at this point they are tentative. So one thing that we do have to do is we do need to click into this little pencil paper icon against finance details, and we need to allocate an actual fee for this student and a payment plan if that is something that you need to do as well. So if I go and choose my finance model that Kat was talking about.
Finance model, the new enrollment.
New enrollment, yep.
I've changed it so it's $2,000.
$2,000, spot on. Okay, so as you can see there, we had $0 before and now we have $2,000. So by choosing these different finance models, and you can name them however you like, it's down to what makes sense to you. You can see it's pulled in that $2,000 that we set as the student's contribution fee or their fee. And the other thing it's done is it's brought in these additional billable items. And when we refer to those, we've actually, we've done so many webinars at this point that we have done separate webinars on how to create items. We've done separate webinars on how to create finance models and how to add items to finance models. So there's definitely additional webinars if you've never done this before in terms of setting up items against models. You'll be sorted, trust me. So the next thing after I've actually allocated a price for this particular student is to allocate a payment plan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose, what do you think is the best thing to choose at this point, Kat?
The 12-month installment plan, the first one. The minimum is $1,000.
The first one. Okay, yep. Let's do that. You'll notice here as well that you also have the option of a custom payment plan. I'm actually going to show you a quick example of that as well. But just for now, let's go into 12-month payment plan. Now, I am not actually going to, at this point, set up a student invoice. I'm simply going to go through and view the enrollment summary. So I'm going to click submit, and I must select a finance code. Of course, I need a finance code. So let's, this is probably something that will already be set if you've got finance codes in your system and you've got defaults set in the right places. But otherwise, you will need a finance code to be able to do any of these sort of changes, like allocating a fee to the student.
And so I'll always give you that warning, like I get all the time because I forget to add my finance code.
Like I have just done. So I'm going to allocate 1-1110 to this particular student. So I'm going to click submit. And now when I scroll down.
Sorry, I just wanted to intervene in 1 second here. If we added a finance, a payment plan, the reason why Katie was asking which payment plan is that in a payment plan, you add a minimum total. And so think about, Harvey Norman, you go to Harvey Norman, you can go on a payment plan of 18-month interest free, but you have to spend a specific amount before you're eligible for that. Same with aXcelerate. We don't have interest-free credit cards, but same with aXcelerate is that the payment plan, you can have a minimum. And if you applied a payment plan where the minimum total is higher than the actual course cost, on the top of your screen here, you'll get a little, just in this section here, you'll get a yellow warning saying that the student's not eligible for that payment plan, and it won't be able to be applied.
Cool.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
I just wanted to say that because it can easily be missed, especially if you've got a whole list of errors at the top.
Absolutely, which could also be possible. All right. So as we scroll down now, this is one of these things where at this stage, we may even be sort of almost backwards well, no, we're not backwards enrolling, we're forwards enrolling, but we're still tentative. So we don't actually have dates allocated against these particular payments.
It may be our payment plan that we selected is trying to pull dates against units, and there's no units, so it's saying TBD.
Exactly.
So let me figure that in the background, and Katie will continue.
I might even just go back into the student and I'm going to choose a custom payment plan so I can demonstrate that, which is, it works in a very, very similar way. So what I'm going to do, yeah, it's against every single unit. But otherwise what you would see there is if it was monthly installments, you would see one by one after the other.
Just change it to a 12-month installment.
Oh, okay, 12-month installment example.
This one's based on the enrollment and the start date.
Enrollment as opposed to all the units.
Yeah, so we have an enrollment and we have a start date.
Okay. So, perfect. All right, so here we go. So as you can see, we had a $2,000 course and then we had these additional fees as well. So we had extra billable items. So as you can see, what will happen, depending on how you've set up your payment plan, is that you will end up with however many installments the payment plan entailed. So you can see here, you know, we've got probably $100 a month every single month for however many months, 7 months, for example. And it's actually calculating all of those dates for you as well. So that's really what we need to get to for a tentative enrollment. So we need to tentatively enroll, we need to allocate a fee to the student and also choose a payment plan. So that, even though it's taken me a little bit longer, is generally quite a quick process. I can now do that again. I'll go and demonstrate that again against just another course, just to show you what it looks like where we've got multiple qualifications pulling onto the one payment plan. Sorry, one letter of offer. Oh my goodness, I'm going crazy today. So let's go into courses and go into intakes, and I'll just choose a slightly different qualification. So let's choose the Cert 4 in Training and Assessment. All right, so we'll go in there, and I'm actually going to just enroll my Sam Woods in here. Oh, I've just done the wrong thing. Let me just double check that I haven't accidentally enrolled him, because you know what I just did? That's how easy it is to not tick the little tentative button. So let's go Sam Woods again. Click enroll. And Sam Woods has been tentatively added. So let's go into our tentative enrollment, go into Sam, scroll down. I'm going to allocate a fee, but this time I'm actually going to set up a custom payment plan just to demonstrate how that works as well. So my tuition finance code, I'm going to just choose is the 1-120, for example. And at this point, you actually notice on this particular intake, we haven't got preloaded or we haven't created finance models for this specific qualification, which is Cert 4 in Training and Assessment. So we don't even have that drop down up the top. So for this example, I'm actually going to just put a price in here myself. But otherwise, you would have the system, you know, giving you a nice little list to drop down and actually then populate the price for you. So as I said, I'm going to choose the payment plan, custom payment plan. I'm going to go, and then I'm going to go down and click submit against view the enrollment summary. All right. So we can see here, I've got my $3,000, but I actually need to add installments. So if you're curious about this, we do go through this when we talk about finance, when we talk about enrolling in the payment plan webinar, we cover this as well. But in essence, custom payment plans allow you to add your own installments and be really creative in terms of, you know, what this actually looks like. So you can start with you know, a payment plan that may have been set up, maybe my 7 installment payment plan that I used for the first enrollment. And maybe I want to change some dates around, and maybe I want to change the fees around. So maybe within the first installment, I'm actually paying $1,000. And you can see here, I've still got a full sort of $1,400 remaining. So maybe I want to add another payment. And now I'm at payment 8 and I'm up to $3,000. So that's fine. I can also in this point add items as well. So I could actually go through and add an admin fee. I could go and add a hard hat that they need to pay for. They also need to pay for a resource fee of $1,000. That's quite a high resource fee. Let's go for a student ID, or maybe they've already paid for that on the first enrollment. So yeah, at this point, it's really down to just whatever you need to charge the student for this second enrollment, and then hit update. Okay, So there you go. So that is actually taking, instead of just one of the payment plans, well, it is taking one of the payment plans we've already created, but that's the full customization of really what you can do within custom payment plans as opposed to our normal payment plans. And at that point, we can also add items. So if you've forgotten to add them to the finance model, at this stage, we can go through and add those and they'll work the same way. All right, so let's go back to Sam Woods as a student, and at this point, he's not a full-on student. Sorry, he's simply a contact with 2 tentative enrollments, and underneath both of them, we don't have any sort of units. They're simply there as placeholders of information with our payment plans and finance details attached. Okay. So once we have that, we're now in a position to go and issue the letter of offer, right? So again, the little flow through is that we take on a new student or take on a prospective student. We would get all their details. We make sure that we have all of their items collected that we need to collect. You may have a slightly different process, but this is just coming out of what I would do anyway in my head. I would then, if I'm interested in issuing the letter of offer, I would have to tentatively enroll them into the qualifications that they're interested in doing. I'd have to allocate the actual fees and also make sure that I have a payment plan in there if you do pop students onto payment plans using aXcelerate. And then at this point, I can actually go ahead and issue my letter of offer. So to do that, I have to do this from the contact because I'm dealing with multiple qualifications. So if I try and issue the letter of offer from this specific intake, it might pull the November details or the cert one and the business details, but it won't pull anything else. So that's not very helpful. So if we go into actions and we go down to template, another thing that we've had to do, or another thing that we've actually added to the system as part of, I guess, the ongoing creation of our Cricos functionality is to add this additional little step down here within this page, which is normally just, well, you can choose to choose a category or not, but basically to choose your template. Having this little enrollments area down here will actually allow you to select the enrollments you wish to include on your letter of offer. So if the student is a returning student and they've already done 3 qualifications with you and they're coming back to do another 2, you might have 5 here and you don't want all of them being included on this letter of offer. So that's something that's quite important, is just, you know, knowing that you do have to actually select the enrollments that you want pulling through to your letter of offer. So let's select our letter of offer. And at this point, Kat, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something. Thanks, Katie. That the reason why we've got multi-enroll at the end of this letter of offer is that this one template has been configured to then pull in multiple enrollments like we're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
But you might have the situation where a student is only doing one enrollment, and in that regards you have to use a different template that in the back end has been configured in a slightly different way, and you issue it from the student's enrollment like Katie just showed you before. So it is important that you keep the name and convention of multi-enroll so that we can see that that you remember this is a template that's going to pull multiple enrollments and needs to be generated from this area here.
Absolutely. And it doesn't even have to be, you know, straight up multi-enroll. If you want to, you know, pop in here, ABC learning, letter of offer for multiple qualifications, or, you know, however it makes sense. But as Kat said, the 2 that we've created, one is for single enrollments, one is for multiple enrollments, and that's the one that I'm using at the moment. So let's go ahead and click submit. And then what we're going to be doing is we're actually previewing our letter of offer. So what you can see here is that the details that I have filled in, there's quite a few things that I missed out of the contact record, but you can see here my name, my address, which is a little bit, you know, Australia. So I would obviously have my address pulling through here, my agent's organization as well, which generally wouldn't have agent, but it's just an example I used yesterday. So ABC International, my student number, my name, my date of birth, my USI, my gender, my passport number, country of citizenship. So all of these things and additional fields. If you want additional things to pull on here from information that you've collected, it's simply just adding additional fields. So if I go edit template and we have a look at this one, again, it's just adding as many of these as you need to pull through. And you can see trainee full name, agent contact name, agent organization. So if I go back in here, as you can see, what we've got is this sort of, I guess, multi-enrollment table, which includes both the enrollments that I've enrolled Sam Woods into tentatively. So what we can see here is that I haven't obviously filled in a Cricos code for either of these courses yet. So that is something that we'll pull through, just that's sitting against the particular qualification. Where we've got proposal numbers, as far as I know, that's just the enrollment ID. Let me just double check. It is the enrollment ID. So every single enrollment within aXcelerate has a unique ID, as well as just the student having their own ID. Each of their enrollments will actually have its own unique number. So that's basically what that particular number is there. And again, you can choose to include that if you want, or if you don't want that there, you can remove it. What have I done? Okay. Let's go back in here. As you can see, the course name, we've got the start date, we've got the end date of the overall courses. It does pop them into order of what's the first course and then the next course, particularly if there's an overlap. But things like our overall start and finish dates, a lot of that will come down into this next line as well, which is your agreed start date and your expected end date. So what this is doing, this agreed start date, is actually pulling the very earliest start date it can find. Sorry, I'm getting a bit dyslexic. And then it'll take the very latest end date that it can find, or the very last end date of say the 3 qualifications or 2 qualifications, and then that will be the overall expected end date for the multiple qualifications. So not just for the first one, for example. Obviously, all of these things, such as, you know, your default start date and, you know, all of these additional notes, are all interchangeable, and you can tweak them as much as you want. So this is fully customizable to an extent. You don't want to go too far down the track customizing these complex tables, just because they've got a lot of code in them to allow them to roll over the way that they are. But you can see it's pulling things like your duration, it's pulling the amount of weeks. So those are sort of all just pulling from your timetabling and how you've set up your intake. Something else that you can see down here is our payment of fees. So it's going to pull the overall cost, which we said was $2,000 for the Cert 1 and $3,000 for the Cert 4 in TAE. So that's going to pull in those costs and again produce one of these loop over tables. And then finally down the bottom here, and we're missing a little gap between the two, but we've got all of the installments for the Cert 1 in business, and we also have all of the installments for the Cert 4 in TAE, which is the one that I've actually customized in a way. And I think because this is a custom payment plan, it's looking a little bit funny, but we might just have to go and have a little look as to why that is. It could even be that I clicked back a couple of times too many. From there, what it's going to give you is the total. So it's actually going to give your student an indication of the total fees across all of the quals that you're offering them, as well as a little section down here where it describes the items. And that's a perfect example of actually where Kat was showing before the ability to, you know, separate both your fees and your items, which is where I haven't done that. I've added on the fly these additional things like the admin fee, the hard hat, and the workbook, which is clear it really should be done at the point of the finance model.
The reason why this is occurring is that the coding that's behind the courses there is pulling information from the finance model. So where we see this, it's saying we'll find finance model items that have been attached to this enrollment. And so that's what it's pulling there. These are items that have been added to the payment plan, but not added to the finance model. So it's just the coding that we put behind it. It's displaying correctly in the way that we inputted the data, is that we added these items to a payment plan. These items were added by a finance model.
Yeah, and I think that almost looks much nicer.
I think so too.
Yeah, when it's separated out and they can see, you know, everything that they need to pay.
And what you would notice as well is that these, I'm pointing with my finger here, so I'm relying on Katie to move it. These finance models don't have a calculation because they're not a calculable field. Whereas here, the total amount due is a calculation that's appearing for us for both for all of the qualifications, and that's pulling in the item list as well. So that's calculating it for you there.
Cool. Thanks, Kat. That's kind of all there is to it in terms of the complex code that is behind this particular template. A few other things as well that we've had to, or not had to, but that we've added, which might benefit you as well, is the fact that when I go into, I'm actually going to open this in a separate page. Actually, I've got it right here. With our letter of offer, if you're wanting this to only ever be sent as a PDF attachment as opposed to being actually sent as an email, we've now introduced PDF attachment only. So if I hover over the little I button, it's saying only allow this template to be sent as a PDF attachment. An additional template will need to be specified as the body content of the email. So a really good example of this is where we're trying to send out an invoice to a student. We don't actually want the invoice to be sent as the email. We want, hi, Kat, your invoice is attached. And then attached to that is a PDF of the actual tax invoice. So then you're getting out of the sort of danger zone of someone changing it as they're emailing it and forwarding it back and so on. If you do want to just simply email them, by all means, you've got the option to do that. But if you'd like to PDF only with these letter of offer, all that you need to ensure is that you've got that ticked and that you also have a second template that actually has the body of the email that's going to be sent. So at this point, what I might do is just choose something random in here, but it could be that it's the letter of offer body email, for example, or email body. When the actual email is sent to the student with the letter of offer attached, it will still take on whatever the name is of the template. So if you can make sure that, keep that in mind when you're naming that letter of offer, that is the subject of the email unless you change it at the point of sending it to the student. So by clicking things like PDF attachment only and also having a default email body, if I just hit save on that one and jump back into my letter of offer, what I can do instead of hitting the PDF button, downloading the PDF, going to my emails, going to send it out and attaching it to the student and so on, which is quite a convoluted process, I can simply click email. And we can already see down the bottom here that we've got an attachment, which is our letter of offer multi-enroll.pdf. So that is the PDF of the actual letter of offer that we've just created. Now, as a first sort of time for all of this, I would probably just be, now I've lost it, but if I go back to my template very quickly, choose my letter of offer, choose my enrollments. As you're trialing this and as you're having a look at what your letter of offer looks like, it might be good to just PDF within this view, just first of all, just maybe just for the very first one and just check that it, it breaks as you need it to break and it's got enough gap. So, maybe these margins need to be adjusted a little bit, whatever needs to happen, because at the point of sending it, you won't actually be able to preview it as a PDF. It'll just be sent whenever you click email. So once you've made sure that it looks the way that you intend for it to look, you shouldn't have to change it between sending it to each student. Once it's set up and you like the look of it, it should really just be that you go template, you choose your letter of offer, you choose your enrollments that you want to include, and at this point we hit email. And we can see here that the email content is my assessment or my letter of offer email body that we would have to create as part of this. And then we can simply hit send on this. Now, the lovely thing about this is we can see as soon as we've sent that, a record of this has been left against the contact. Something else that we've mentioned in other webinars as well, which is something that I just simply haven't done for this one, is the ability to change this note type as well. So whenever we send any sort of communication out of the system, like an email, like a template, a merge document, an SMS, a general email, a system-generated note will always be left, but we've actually enhanced our template area just slightly so that you're actually able to choose a different note type as well. So you may even want to go through and create another note type, which is something like letter of offer sent. And that is something that you can then set here so that once you're in the position where you've just sent a letter of offer, instead of seeing system-generated note, you'll actually see letter of offer sent. And that then leads to, the ability to report on how many letter of offer sent did we send this week, who do we send them to, who sent them. So it just gives you a little bit more control over being able to have a look at, what's actually been left. And I guess with your letter of offer, how many of them have been sent and who sent them, as I said. So this is all time and date stamped though. It will give you the user who sent it. It'll allow you to view the email, but the viewing of the email will literally just be the body or the content of the email, which will be more like, hi Sam, please find your letter of offer attached. Whereas if you click on this little PDF here, we can actually go and have a look at the actual letter of offer that was sent to Sam. And there we go, we've got it on file, and we can go and have a look at the original letter of offer that was sent to Sam Woods. So it's always going to save that there for you. At that point, that's pretty much the process. We'd then be in a position where once Sam had come back and said, yep, I'm happy, I want to now go through and fully accept the offer. They've come back, they've sent it back to you. I would be probably saving that signed letter of offer somewhere. So whether that is in your portfolio area is probably where I would be suggesting to add that, or it could even be that it's part of your contact notes, and you've attached the email or the signed document, whatever it might be. It's really, I'm just throwing things out here. But at that point, you would go and grab from Prisms, I think is where we would go and allocate something like a COE number. We would grab that number and then go into both quals and confirm the student, or basically change their status from tentative to in progress. Even if they haven't fully commenced yet, we'll then be able to actually enroll them in the units, ready for them to start, say, next month or in 6 months' time when they're due to start and commence. Okay, so I'm going to just demonstrate that now. Say I've gone and got my COE. Down here in my list of fields, just above, these are all custom fields here, but just above our custom fields here, I've got COE number. So you will see that now if you have Cricos switched on. So I can pop a little number in here. And I'm also going to change the student from in progress, tentative to in progress. And if I hit update all, you will see what will happen. So I've got now an in progress student. I have their COE number saved against their enrollment, and I'm now in a position where I can actually enroll them into the units of competency that make up the Cert 1 for us. Something else that you can do now, which you couldn't do before, is when we are going and enrolling a student in all of the units, we can also automatically book them onto the linked workshop and also sync dates with the schedule of the class as well. So all of the timetabling behind all of that. So otherwise that was quite an arduous task. So we've tried to make that as quick as possible for you now. You can simply enroll in the units you need to enroll into and enroll into the timetabling using these two little buttons here at the same time. So now I can click update all. And now I'm in a position where I've obviously got a couple of things where I'm just double checking each of the workshops that I'm actually popping the students onto, or the timetabling, and I'm going to add units and create bookings and be done with it. So if I scroll down now, I've got a full enrollment there in progress. This is again a little bit of a strange one because I'm using a class where the start date or the start date of the student is in the past, so it's creating a couple of these problems. But in essence, as we can see, I am now fully enrolled. I've got timetabling. If I scroll down, I've got my COE number. And I now have also all my finance details. So I might be in a position to raise the first invoice. So basically we have to do this for exactly the same, basically we have to do this for all of the other enrollments that we're offering the students. So we'd go through that same exact process is what I'm trying to say. So after you've done one, we'd go into the next one, change them to in progress, allocate their COE, click update all, and then you're in a position where you can actually allocate all of the additional units and all of the timetabling at the same time. Oh, so much, isn't there? I didn't realize how much there was, but there actually is way more when we think about it.
Yeah, our intentions for these kind of case shows are to do these difficult ones again and again and again. Just to make sure that you can come online and have a look at some different examples, but also because there's so much here, it's not feasible for us to expect you to sit down for 3 hours while we show you timetabling and payment plans and finance
May even
models.
be more than 3 hours, to be honest.
So there are a lot of other webinars that you can watch that are, I guess, predecessors to this example here. But that was a great overview of how to manage your enrollments. And Cricos is a big
Beast.
It is a big beast. So don't expect to watch this webinar and understand everything. We will do more webinars. And I think a key learning from this is maybe we should go Cricos settings, Cricos enrollments, Cricos qualifications.
Yeah, so definitely
Cricos
the next
reporting.
time we do this one, we will actually record it in probably a less jumpy fashion. But yeah.
We did have one question, and I wasn't quite sure what was meant by it, but it was back in regards to the tentative button. So what does it populate with a tentative button? I'm not sure if that's the right question, but I'll try and answer it. So just to clarify as well, I know Katie explained it, but with Cricos, your students are registering their interest in a qualification, whether that be through your agents because those students are still international and they're overseas, or whether they're here in Australia and they're directly I guess expressing their interest with you or inquiring, and you can enroll them in a tentative status. And what it does, not only does it put them in a tentative status and put them into the class, but it actually does not enroll them in any of these units. So you then don't have start and end dates and statuses for something that doesn't actually exist. So it enrolls them with the tentative status, with an enrollment date, a commencement date, and expected completion date. And those 3 dates are triggers for particular payment plans down the bottom here. And we saw with our initial payment plan that we added that it said TBD because there were no unit dates and our payment plan was linked to units. So the reason why you would tentatively enroll is that you can easily delete them and they're not actually enrolled in the qualification. I believe tentative students are not reported then. Tentative students are not reported at all. So that's the other benefit of putting them in the tentative state. And then we saw Katie just demonstrated once they've confirmed is how quickly you can change into an in progress. And they've already got the finance details. They may have already paid partial invoice. So
correct, yeah. They may have paid a bond or a deposit, for example.
Yeah, and then you've got that history of your communication with that student going well back to the second they inquired, even though they're in a tentative status, you've got all those
milestones.
All the milestones and the timestamps of everything happening. So I believe that's everything for today's session. As we said, we might just quickly stop our share.
Sorry, that's my
that's her cue.
That's my cue.
And we'll start our video. So thank you very much again for your attendance. Once again, you won't be able to, well, it'll be great if you can use Cricos after this session, but we're not anticipating that you're going to be able to jump in and do it straight away. And we will be providing more support and more webinars so that you can see, well, how do I set everything up? This was really just an overview of Cricos. And as you know now, it is what Katie said,
a bit of a beast. Yeah. And I think that when I guess from our experience, when we first started trying to tackle this, and from our point of view, Cricos was a brand new thing. And I guess we were kind of learning as we went, but it's there is quite a lot that comes into it. And I think that it's, if you can bite off little bits as you go, and we have tried to put as much in place to make it as simple and easy to get started, instead of having to go and populate and create all these new reports and things like your portfolio types. So hopefully that will be a little bit easier for you as well. But as Kat said, we're going to be running plenty more of these, and good luck.
Yes. So we just got some feedback as well to say that you'd like to see a specific Cricos program of webinars. Great idea. I agree.
Yeah, I agree too.
I think we jumped into this with the expectation that we'd be able to cover it in an hour. Lesson learned.
We were learning as we went as well that it was
the great thing is that we're towards our end of our 12-week program for the Kat and Katie Show program, which means we're going to get some more webinars that are more focused, I guess, on the learnings that we made from version 1. Is that when we start to do the Kat and Katie shows again, it might be something that you would see in February or even in March, something quite soon. We don't have 12 weeks of webinars booked in for the future. So definitely we'll book in a Cricos program of webinars and we'll let you know when it's available.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much for sitting in and listening to me jump around the place.
We hope you have a lovely day. Tomorrow we have 2 different webinars on, and they're vet student loans if you want to attend. So another beast of the system.
Yes.
We'll be looking at, the reason why there's 2 is that we'll be looking at vet student loans by themselves, and then vet student loans plus state funding, which is the 2017 changes. All right. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Have a great afternoon. Bye.